Have you ever been playing or watching someone play The Witcher and thought to yourself, man, I really wish this had more resource management and base building in it? No? That's just me? Wrong! Steam Spy ratted you out. There's fully 34,500 of you following today's game on Steam. I knew you couldn't help yourself but want some elements of urban design in your dark Slavic monster hunting adventures, you freaks. This genre bender of a game is Gord. If I had to sum it up, I would call it a fantasy horror RTS. It's all the best parts of The Witcher's haunting Slavic folklore, stretched over a framework of carefully balanced colony management like a taut hide of nightmare beasts stretched over a shaman's drum, with elements of survival and skirmish-based combat and feature-rich maps to scour. In fact, the developer's game director and studio head, Stan Just, was a producer on The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, and the narrative of Gord has more than just a bit of the same flavor as that epic title. Since so many of you watching this found my channel from my Next Fest video, I just have to say, the only reason I didn't cover Gord's demo at that time was because I knew the launch was soon and I wanted to save all my hype for this week. And this game earns the hype. The lore is so compelling, the management is so challenging, and the choices you have to make they're just gut-wrenching. Woof. I feel like I'm going to drive myself off a cliff here before I even get to the video intro. So, okay, here goes. Hi gamers, I'm the Indie Detective, indie gaming video contributor for thegeekligrind.com, and welcome to our first look at everything you need to know about Gord. From Polish studio Covenant.Dev and publisher Team17, Gord will be dropping Thursday, August 17th on Xbox, PS5, and PC via Steam and GOG. But before we go sacrifice a helpless villager to the swamp demons, would you kindly hit that like and subscribe button for me? Your help boosting this video in the eyes of the almighty algorithm is the only thing keeping the dread serpent and enemy of all mankind, Shmi, at bay. I'm trying out adding chapter markers on this video, here's hoping that works, and thanks to Pluto13 and mguillerm82 for pointing out that I need these in such long videos. Remember, I do read all your comments, and I hope they help. And if you're looking for more videos, articles, reviews, and sneak peeks in all things geek culture, whether that's gaming, anime, collectibles, tabletop, conventions, and more, check out thegeekligrind.com, follow us on our media social, links in the description just under the video. Speaking of that Next Fest video from the end of July, Gord was the number 14 title in terms of how many people played it that week. It's definitely built up a good following as we head into launch week, but what even is Gord? What is a Gord? I figured it was a Slavic term for like a border outpost or something, so I did a quick little Google search and discovered that, let's see here, Gord is a common condition where acid from the stomach leaks up into the esophagus, causing gastroesophageal reflux disease. We spell esophagus with an E, so it's GERD. Okay, so it says here that none of that is actually relevant to the game world and that a Gord is a fortress. Let me start giving you a little bit of context here by talking about Gord's campaign. The campaign is the game's primary game mode. You can build out custom scenarios on procedural maps, but we'll talk on that later. In the campaign, your role is that of a royal bootlicker sent to escort the king's favorite frog to a gold mine deep in the northern frontier. But by bootlicker, I mean you're a steward, and by frog, I mean emissary, and by frontier, I mean death swamp, or corpse bog, murder mire, take your pick. The gold mine is still a gold mine. The king is busy doing a world conquest run on the last free kingdoms of the south, so basically doing a Nilfgaard thing from The Witcher. So all the resources he can spare to help you with the aforementioned task is the Frogman and a tribe of northerners who decide to jump on the We Love the King train before he shows up with actual armies. By the end of the first cutscene, we've met our new vassals called the Tribe of the Dawn, worshippers of the sun god Dabo, and their fearless leader Bogdan.
I am Bogdan.
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 Bodan.
Bogdan.
And by vassals, I mean we've command of a group of collaborators and their elder, really stretching that term elder to its literal limits here, whose superpower seems to be going actually to everything the emissary frog-faced man says.
Where are your warriors?
Onward to the gold, tribals, says the emissary. Actually, we didn't bring any food. Okay, go get some food, tribals, the emissary says. Actually, it's kind of dangerous out here, so we need to build a whole ass base. Okay, build a whole settlement here. Seems like we're making great progress toward that gold. Actually, long story short, you end up building a whole chain of permanent settlements across a nigh uninhabited wasteland. Of course, by uninhabited, I mean that in the sense of every would-be colonizer who gets a little more than they bargained from their new fiefdom.
Blood, I know you want to occupy this land.
Give a king a gold mine, he's going to want to mine it. And if you want to mine a gold mine, you have to have miners. If you want to have miners, you need to feed the miners. If you want to feed the miners, you need a builder's hut. And for that, you need thatch. You need to collect river reeds. And if you want to do that, you have to kill off the wolves. It's a whole thing. You've played colony management games before, right? I mean, I basically just described all colony management games. There's a lot of other things I'd like to talk about in more detail, but trust me, there's a lot more to go through here. I'm just, for the sake of time, gonna rattle off a few other features in the game before I get into what I really, really love about Gord. Okay, first off, all of the villagers in the game are unique, not meaning like they'll never re-roll the same way. I mean, they are all handwritten. You know, most games would use some sort of procedural system to generate random villagers for you. I mean, these are your expendable tribals after all, but no, in Gord, each of the 1,000 villagers has a profile that was written by an actual person. In fact, if you're launching this on Game Week, you can go watch some Twitch streamers right now who are messing around with some villagers who are designed specifically to embody them. Pretty neat little marketing thing there. Well played, Team17 influencer relations team. Each of your villagers is going to be better or worse at doing certain jobs, based on a permanent experience multiplier they all have. One villager, for example, might get a 30% boost to harvesting wood and thatch. That's its cutting skill, but it might also have a negative 10% to combat experience. Each one also has a unique buff and debuff, kind of like in State of Decay. Some of them are pretty benign, but some can make a single fighter or gatherer into the fulcrum of your whole game strategy. Generally, you start with a group of 7, but there are ways to rescue new villagers, and of course, make babies to grow your population. That's based on how prosperous your settlement is. In between missions, you get to choose which of your villagers comes with you to start your next Gord. So over time, you can actually build up a really experienced team. Or you can choose from a new group of random faces to fill in the gaps in your rank. It gives you an extra 7 randomized villagers that you can swap out your old villagers with the new. In addition to the main objectives of the campaign, there's also like 100 side quests that you can tackle, each one of which can give you boosts ranging from a little extra experience to gaining some of the most powerful weapons in the game. You don't need these to achieve the campaign objectives, but they definitely help. And lastly, there are the horrors. These are the schmucks that you see in the trailer, and they are mean. Each one basically forces you to make a choice between sacrificing a sure thing or taking a really risky gamble. I feel like I can't really talk too much about the horrors without spoiling the campaign for you, but just know if you run across Shrek with leprosy or a suspiciously sexy plant, it's okay to be a little scared. I'll talk more about how Gord forces you into tricky dilemmas more in a minute. Okay, Indy, okay, you've basically just described every colony building game ever made with a few elements of, like, an RPG, but why all the hype? Why did you build this up so much? Okay, Boo, I got you. Go for the eyes, Boo. I'm gonna call out 2 things specifically that make Gord pure gold. The Sanity system and the Mama's Basement Dwelling Dungeon Master level of lore that it drops on you. Let's kick off with that first thing, the Sanity system. The game will never tell you this, but in every single level of Gord, every single scenario, you're on a timer that is counting down to your doom. More or less. This timer isn't a clock, it's much cleverer than that. In the world of Gord, the sun set centuries ago, and it just never came back up. It's always nighttime. It gets brought up again and again that the god your tribe worships, Dabo,
twice as many Dabo girls,
is the dead sun god, and they kind of get mocked for worshiping it. You know, like when you work a 12-hour shift at a call center, and when you get to work, the sun hasn't even come up yet? You clock into your windowless cubicle barn, and by the time you head home, it's already dark again. Well, much like all my coworkers at that holding tank for slowly dying college students, in Gord, you're fighting a losing battle against insanity. The only thing keeping your workers from succumbing to the horrors of the night is the warm glow of torchlight radiating from the gourd.
Let's start with the meadery, shall we?
Oh, and also alcohol. You fix your people with alcohol. Just like in a call center. I knew this was a good analogy. But the farther and farther you venture from the walls to gather resources, the longer they spend in the dark, the farther they slip from sound mind. As they get further from the gourd, they spend more time in the dark, and then they have to spend more time in the bar getting just totally wasted to gain their sanity back. When you lose too much insanity, there's a chance your person just bolts and runs off into the night, never to be seen again. You lose them permanently. As you progress through the campaign, you'll unlock additional buildings and upgrades that improve your gathering rate, attack power, and even allow you to take shelter in an outpost further from the safety of your gourd. These upgrades require you to source clay and later iron, which exists only in limited quantities, and it's often hidden behind baddies. It's probably also worth mentioning that there is actually a literal timer running in the background too. There's an event that triggers called the Blood Moon. I'm not actually sure if it's timed or if it just happens randomly after a certain point in later missions, but just when you think you've cleared a good enough portion of the map for your diligent worker bees to safely go about your tasks, the Blood Moon can respawn enemies all over the map, even some of the mini-boss level legendary beasts. You can't get too comfortable, or Veles, the god of the earth and the underworld, will give you a swift kick in the vulnerable bits. The Sanity system is like Edgar Allan Poe's pendulum, ticking back and forth over you as you try to arm enough soldiers just to kill the big bad guy. Take too long and you get to watch as you slowly slip into unsustainable territory. Line go up turns to line go down. It starts with one mushroom gatherer needing a 10-minute break to get proper mead drunk. Next thing you know, you're in triage mode, voluntolding the scouts with no foraging experience to try to keep even a trickle of food coming in while your whole kitchen staff is crying in the walk-in. I've worked a lot of service jobs in my life. The Sanity system makes Gord stand out from other colony management games, and it's the reason why at the top of the episode I called this a fantasy horror RTS and not a city builder. The game is designed to stress you out. Gathering simple resources, especially a couple levels in, quickly goes from trivial to burdensome, as you need to closely watch sanity meters, assign torch-wielding scouts to escort gatherers, which is a resource drain in their own right since scouts don't actually help carry anything. I haven't even talked about the mechanics of maintaining military units, which have to be paid in gold that you can't even reliably produce for the first several levels. Colony builders are, for the most part, about giving players possibilities, a sandbox to make your imagination manifest. Strategy games are about giving you dilemmas and not really having a best choice so much as figuring out which one is the least bad and dealing with the often gut-wrenching consequences. Maybe I'm way off base with how I'm labeling the game here, and if you need to pretend to be a senile tribal elder and actually me in the comments section, I'm not going to stop you. Okay. The next standout feature of Gord is, as I so artfully described it, the level of detail poured into the world's lore could only be the product of the guy you knew from high school who never moved out of his parents' house and has entire bookcases full of 3-ring binders full of home-cook RPG campaigns. Or, someone like Anna Sokolska, a professional novelist and IT manager and freaking lawyer. Who even are you, Anna? Jeez. In writing, there's this pearl of wisdom that every beginner writer gets hammered into them, over and over again. When you want your reader to learn something about the world, show them, don't tell them. The world of Gord unfolds in two ways. It both shows you and tells you. Your character, the steward, has no idea what they're getting into by venturing into Calanthea, the far northern lands. You mostly learn how to deal with the monsters in darkness by experience, and by, of course, Bogdan chiming in with the timely actually every single cutscene. But you figure out pretty quickly that, while sure, things are always rotten in the state of Calanthea, things are getting way worse for some reason, and way fast, and praying to Dabo, they've got Dabo, wasn't exactly helping anybody. I had to get one more Dabo call out in there. Haha. Okay, that's where the Chronicle comes into play. The Chronicle is the world's canon Bible for Gord. It takes the form of 82 individual entries, little vignettes or short stories, which are all beautifully written, by the way, and fully voice acted. They explain in chronological order the entire history of the Gord world, from creation all the way to modernity. Well, I mean, medieval modernity. There's only one minor hitch to this. When you launch the game, all you see is 82 locked entries. You don't unlock them until, through your game, you experience the conflict between the old gods and the new, between those gods and men, and between men and the natural world. On top of that, it doesn't unlock in order. It doesn't start you at creation. It unfolds like a cleverly written mystery, giving you hints and context, connecting dots, building characters and motivations which give your role in the game deeper meaning. Let me give you a little example. Minor spoiler here, but not too much. When you build your first Gord and learn about the mechanics of sanity and darkness, it gives you an entry halfway through the chronicle about the invention of fire, mentioning the god Davo.
Twice as many Davo girls.
Got one more Davo sting. Woo! But it gives no other clues about the origins of man or what fire was invented to fight. The next thing you learn when you encounter a horror in the swamps is about the dark yearnings the earth god Veles held for the goddess of the waters Mokash. It's very cringy, but even then it's not until far later that you learn about the whole creation myth that the thing is based on, and who these Mokash and Veles and the sky god Prabo people even are. If all you do is play through the campaign, you're going to have an absolute treat of a story laid out for you, don't get me wrong. But if you're at all into fantasy stories, I can't recommend highly enough that you take the time to listen to the chronicle entries as they unlock. The last thing I want to touch on before I wrap up this everything you need to know launch day episode about Gord is that it also has a quick play option. From the main menu, you can play one-off scenarios on a procedurally generated map. And there's actually chronicle entries that you can only find in these custom scenarios. I did only get to play through a single scenario before finishing up this script, but it was actually a really neat, fast experience, completely different from the slow burn of the campaign. All the buildings are unlocked, unlike in the campaign where they unlock as you progress, and you get 7 randomized villagers, a random objective, that is if you use the quick play option, which I did, and it gave me a treasure hunt objective to go look for a crown on the far opposite side of the map, and the whole thing is timed. It's capped at 2 hours. It's perfect for when you know you have exactly a set amount of time to game. I thought I was doing great in my scenario. I blitzed to the midway point of the map, set up an outpost to help collect iron and gold to feed my new patrol of soldiers, and then blood moon! Out of nowhere, all the baddest bumps in the night came back in a blink and totally scoured all my best stuff, reminding me exactly whose turf I was on. It was agonizing to watch. I loved every moment. See, we're all freaks here doing our little Witcher city builder thing just so we can cause ourselves enough emotional pain to feel alive again. What? Where am I? Oh right, we're at the conclusion of the video. When I first started up Gord, I really didn't have any idea what I was getting myself into. I had watched the trailers with monsters tearing apart thatched houses and all kinds of scary, oozy things attacking the screen, but I could not have anticipated having the kind of experience that Gord treated me to. The campaign starts at a bit of a trickle, it eases you into gameplay, and it takes a while to really get into consistent combat and the feeling of strain against sanity in a village based on swamp subsistence hunting and gathering. But it unfolds like any of your favorite epic tales, slowly and then all at once. Between cutscenes and the chronicle, it tells a story worthy of a grand RPG. Maybe not Baldur's Gate 3, but still really, really tight. Also, side note, thank you for taking the time from your 80-hour playthrough of BG3 to watch this video. Between the campaign, which I haven't finished by the way, so no spoilers in the comments, and all the custom scenarios, I'd say you can probably comfortably fit 15 hours of gameplay into Gord and still have things you haven't seen left. The developer says that there's between 10 and 20 hours to complete the campaign, so maybe I'm way off the mark on that 15-hour thing. Hey, now there's something you can spoil for me. Tell me how long it takes you to get through the campaign if you end up picking up this game. There are basically 2 kinds of gamers I can recommend Gord to, and oddly enough, it's probably not people who like colony management sims. Unless it's the kind of colony that's like super bleak, like this War of Mine or Frostpunk maybe. This game is for strategy gamers, especially those who really enjoy a mental challenge. That's why I called this a real-time strategy game, not a colony management sim. With waves of enemies, restricted resources, and permadeath on your villagers, you really have to be on top of your strats. The other kind of gamer who I think will like this is a lore fanatic. The kind of person who always reads the books in Skyrim and has to get through every conversation option with NPCs. I'm not exaggerating in the least when I say Anna Sokolska's world building is best in class. Heck, I'm gonna go look to see if her novels are up on Audible right now. One sec. And they're all in Polish, but still the Chronicle and the campaign perform a super enticing storytelling duet. And you know what? If you're super casual and don't want to be flogged by the game system while enjoying your Slavic epic, just set your difficulty down a peg. I'm a gamer dad. I get what it's like to have limited time to enjoy your hobby. Live your best life. Save scum away. Kill that boss on storyteller mode so you can get a normal night's sleep. You do you, buddy. Gord is going live on Steam and GOG the morning of Thursday, August 17th in the US, as well as on Xbox and PS5. While this video does not feature mature content, Gord does contain adult themes, including religious violence and violence to children. For this video, I've played 8 hours at this point, unlocking 7 of 44 Steam achievements, and I did receive the code for this game free for editorial purposes from Team17. I have otherwise received no compensation for this video from parties involved in the development or publishing of this game. At the end of every review video like this, I like to recommend a few extra indie titles that you're bound to enjoy if this one appealed to you. Some are of similar gameplay types, genre, or subject matter. Some might be the developer's early projects, and sometimes they're just kind of the same vibe. I talked today a lot about Gord's roots in Slavic folklore, and obviously there are connections there to Andrzej Sapkowski's Witcher series, but there's only one game that I know of that dives completely deep into the world of Slavic mythology and its pantheon. Thea the Awakening launched in 2015 and was followed up by Thea 2 The Shattering, and both have very positive reviews on Steam. Your role in Thea is that of a Slavic deity, one of the gods of the Slavic pantheon, leading a tribe of your believers through the age of myth, exploring and colonizing, gathering and crafting, building your strength so your band of mortals can stand toe-to-toe with the likes of demons and giants. For the most part, it plays out like an older 4X game, but it uses that format to craft a non-linear hero story for your tribe rather than as a basis for multiplayer games. It has a really interesting crafting system that requires you to source rare materials to make the best items, going out to the edges of the map to find the rarest stuff. And it has a card-based combat system, which I consider really intuitive if you've played any kind of card system in the last 10 years. Thea sells for $20 on Steam, but it's frequently on sale, so you can grab this Slavic survival experience for the price of a good coffee. If you're just feeling the need to embrace the darkness inside you, and you're not afraid of a little eldritch horror, I can't recommend Dredge to you enough. Dredge was the last big hit published by Team17, and it positions you as the captain of a little fishing dinghy in a big, mean ocean. As you uncover the secrets of the archipelago and catch a staggering variety of fish species, including many with otherworldly diseases and mutations, you also dredge up muddled little bits of your own memory of how you came to wreck your last vessel on the rocks of Great Marrow. Dredge can be a quick playthrough if you stick to the main storyline, or you can indulge your inner Pokemon master and catch every single one of the 100+ sea creatures. Dredge launched March 30th, 2023, and retails for $25 USD on Steam. And yeah, I'll throw you a bone, you poor colony management stan who managed to get this far into the video despite me repeatedly saying that Gord is too hardcore for you. Heck, here's 2 bones. I love you that much. $30 each, both city builders, both early access titles that launched in the second half of 2022. Maybe there was something in the water that year that made developers want to torture city builder players like you. So they made Against the Storm and Farthest Frontier, 2 games where you build medieval-type colonies knowing full well that something is coming to burn your pretty little hamlet to the ground. Just like in Gord, it's like they did some market research on SimCity players and found out that we do in fact enjoy hitting our towns with meteorites and volcanoes. Farthest Frontier is the more realistic of the two. It has the feel of a more complex version of Stronghold with loads of weather mechanics and supply balancing and upgrades to take care of between waves of bloodthirsty raiders. But Farthest Frontier is meant to keep you building if you want your city to be able to withstand the attacks. Against the Storm is a different beast, and I think it would actually be a great stepping stone between something like Tropico or Anno and a meme game like Gord. In this game, it's always raining, kind of like how in Gord it's always nighttime. Periodically, the rain builds in strength into the titular storm, unleashing destruction on your town, forcing you to triage priorities between collecting resources, building out your supply chain, and meeting level objectives before the next storm wave hits. This is also a genre-bending game, since it actually plays out in a roguelike cycle. You're not meant to build a long-lasting settlement, but rather work your way through meta progression so that when the huge map wipe event hits, you've got something to take into your next playthrough. Remember how I said Gord's quick scenarios can get you in and out in about 2 hours? That's almost exactly how long a round of Against the Storm is. So it's great if your game time is limited or if you have a hamster attention span. If I was going to choose between the two, I think Against the Storm would be my recommendation, but they're both strong entries into this new, punishing city builder subgenre. Plus, it has a free demo up on Steam, so it's got that going for it. You can check to see if it's up your alley before you drop $30 on another video game. And that's going to be a wrap on our geekly review of Gord. Once again, Gord launches on August 17th of 2023 and retails for $34.99 USD on Steam, GOG, PS5, and the Xbox Store. You can learn more about Gord and Covenant.Dev at Gord.game. If you get into it, let me know what you think of this game or of my analysis by leaving a comment for me below. And remember, this is still a new channel, so I read everything you write me, hurtful or not. For the Geekly Grind, I've been the Indie Detective. For more articles and videos about video games, board games, comics, anime, and everything else to help you escape your weekly grind, check out thegeeklygrind.com or on Twitter at thegeeklygrind, and you can find me on Twitter at Indie Detective. Thanks for watching, geeks. Indie Detective, signing off.